Learning how to make product display cards on your Cricut can really help you to stand out from your competition. I'm going to show you how to make them, as well as some ready-made assets of those that you can take inspiration from, as well as a free option on my Design Space profile. And all of those links will be in the description. My name is Kelly, and let's get clacking. Now, to make our own product display card, we're going to start in Cricut Design Space by using a few simple shapes. On the left-hand side of the screen, where it says Shapes, I'm going to click on that and I'm going to add in a circle. Now, this circle I'm going to change the size of and make it a little bit smaller, and then I'm going to zoom in on the canvas. I'm going to right-click and duplicate the circle. Put that on top of the other circle and make it a little bit smaller, not by much. I'm going to select both of the circles and align them to the center so that we can make that little part at the top of the card that the keyring will fit over and hook into to make sure that it stays on the product card tightly. I'm then going to slice them to create a little line on the outside of the circle, just like that. I'm not going to delete those yet, as we will use them in a later step, so I might as well just leave them there for now. Next, I'm going to open up the shapes again and add in a square. I'm going to put the square roughly just below halfway of the circle. You can see if you select the circle where the halfway mark is, and I'm going to put it just below that. I'm then going to select both of those shapes and slice once again so that we're only left with that top half moon section. Now, all of this I don't need, so I can just delete that. So now we already have the start of the part of our keyring where it's going to hook onto. And now we just need the little circles on the side there that the keyring is going to slot into to make sure that it doesn't slip out. Because if you don't add these little circles here, typically what happens, the keyring slips out and it drives me nuts because it falls out of the packet. I'm sure you get the idea. I'm going to select both of the circles and make them quite a bit smaller. I'm then going to line them up, maybe make them even smaller still, as I still think that they're a little bit too big. Line them up again. When I say line them up, basically what I'm doing is I'm looking at the crosshair in the middle of the circle and lining it up with the middle of the half moon circle. I'm going to select them both, move them down a little bit more. I'm then also going to align them center vertically just to make sure that they're in line with each other. And then I'm going to weld everything together. So I'm going to select all of these elements, click combine, and select weld so that it becomes one solid object. And all we need to do is add the rest of the tag. Once you've created this shape on your canvas, all you really need to do now is add another shape and slice it out of it so that that part is cut from that shape. This can be anything. If you want to have just the plain squares or rectangles of your product card, that is 100% fine. If you want to go very funky and have a unicorn shape or the shape of a person or a face, or it doesn't matter what kind of shape you choose, you can choose any shape that you want. So you can really get imaginative, or you can just keep it simple and just have a square or the rounded off rectangle. So I'm going to rotate this one so that it is portrait. And what I'm going to do is change the size to match the size of my packaging. Now this one is 6.35 by 4.23. So I need to make sure that the width is around 6.4, as my packets are 6.5 in width, and I like to have a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to adding in the products. And the height, I'm going to make this about 9.5 centimeters. 9.4, as again, the height of my packets are around 9.5, 9.6 centimeters. So again, I like to have a little bit of wiggle room there at the bottom too. I'm going to right click, send it to the back so that I can see my little circle bit. It is a little bit big, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And make sure to measure the width of your keyring. So this might be a part that you will need to adjust and change depending on what size keyring you're using. If you're using a very big keyring, I would recommend making this part a little bit bigger. And if your keyrings are much smaller, then you will need to make it smaller here as well. So you will need to play around with it just to find the right sizing for the products that you're actually using. Now I'm going to select both of these, and once again, align, center horizontally, just to make sure that it is in the middle of the card, as that is really important. I do want to move it up a little bit, so I'm just using the direction arrows on my keyboard, because if I use my mouse, I'm going to move it left or right, and then I'm going to have to align it again, so I'd rather just use the keyboard. Now that it's relatively close to the top, don't put it too close, as you do need that to retain a little bit of strength once it has been cut. And now we can select both of them and click slice. And you'll see there that you have your product display tag created. Now all you need to do is cut these out of whatever cardstock you're wanting to use, and you slot them into your packets and your products are going to look amazing. If you want to take your packaging to the next level, what you can do is actually use print then cut. Bear in mind that it is going to take you longer, and also it may cost you a little bit more because you have to factor in ink, of course time, like I mentioned. The paper may not be more expensive, but that may be a factor that you have to consider there as well. So we can change this from basic cut to print then cut operation type. And of course we can delete those because we don't need it. And then when you click on the little gray square next to the word print then cut, you'll see it says print type color. So we can click on that and you can change it to pattern. So from here you can make it whatever kind of color you want, and you can play around with the filters. This is a pattern that I've uploaded into Design Space, so you can edit the pattern and then maybe just increase the scale a little bit so that it doesn't look so funny. So then when you print and cut your card, it has a very cool backing as opposed to just a plain white or a plain one. The advantage of having a card with a flat color is that it helps your product stand out a lot more. So if you were going to do this, I would suggest something perhaps just around the edges. So instead of doing maybe a pattern like this, you would rather try something that just has some florals on the top and on the bottom so that your product stands out more than the card itself. If done correctly, it could enhance your products. If done incorrectly, it could actually make your products look completely lost on the card. So this particular example is maybe not the best one, but if it was a lot more muted and a lot softer in colors, it may actually work very well. But this particular one stands out just a little bit too much, and it will overpower your product. So it's a good example of a bad product card to do. And from here, of course, remember to save your project and then cut out as many product display keyrings as you need. Now, of course, when it comes to paper recommendations for your product cards, we have a few different options. So this is your normal AC cardstock, which is a 216 GSM cardstock, and it is quite flimsy. But if you are on a budget, then this is a relatively decent enough paper to use. You can of course use it in any color. This was just the color that I picked out first, and it is quite inexpensive. For those of you in the US, these are probably around 50 cents per page, and you should be able to get at least 9 product cards on your page, maybe even up to 12 depending on how wide they are. So that works out very, very cost effective. If you are looking at doing the print then cut method, then I would recommend at least a 250 GSM card. These are about R1 a page for me here in South Africa. So I'm not even sure how many cents that is in the US, but it's a few, like 5 cents. And these work out beautifully for printing. So if you wanted to print on these, this is a matte paper. It is stunning, but you may only be able to get about 6 on a page. So it would work out still cheaper than using AC cardstock as an example. However, you won't be able to get as many per page, and it'll probably take you a lot longer to actually make the product cards. Now, my personal favorite is craft board. Because of the sturdiness of it, it's a 300 GSM. So this is my recommendation when it comes to longevity of your product, because it is a lot thicker and it will work out better at the end of the day. However, it is more expensive. I will put some prices on the screen, as I'm not sure in this moment what the exact prices are per page, but this will be your most expensive option when it comes to doing your product cards, but most definitely your best. And then once your keychains have been cut and your product cards have been cut and applied and put into some plastic packaging to keep it safe and unharmed, then this is what your end product will look like. And as you can see, it looks very much like something that you would go and buy in a shop. So even when it comes to homemade resolutions, these are absolutely fantastic to be able to make very easily on your Cricut. If you're looking for some business product ideas that you might want to do something different from t-shirts and mugs, then check out this video on the screen here. It's free to subscribe for more Cricut tutorials. I'll see you there, and remember, be kind to someone today. See you soon.